Welcome to today's Explainer. We are going to decode the story of a kingdom that for 300 years just refused to fall. We're talking about the Kamata Kingdom of medieval Assam, a dynasty that was really defined by its incredible defiance in the face of constant invasion. So let's unpack this pivotal and pretty complex period of history.
So, how are we piecing this all together? Well, our guide for this journey comes straight from historical study materials, the kind of stuff you'd see for competitive examinations. This gives us a direct line to the core facts, the timelines, and all the key figures we need to build this fascinating story.
So this really is the central question we're going to explore. What happens when a dynasty that's been around for centuries finally collapses and leaves this giant power vacuum? It's a moment of pure chaos, of course, but it's also a moment of incredible opportunity for someone new to step up.
Okay, here's our game plan for today. First up, we'll set the stage by looking at what Assam was like before the Kamata Kingdom. Then, we'll see how the kingdom was literally forged in conflict. After that, we're going to untangle the very complicated royal politics of its later years. And finally, we'll look at the new empires that rose up from its ashes.
So, to really understand the Kamata Kingdom, we've got to rewind the clock a bit. We need to see the world that it was born into.
I mean, for nearly 800 years, this region was dominated by a series of powerful dynasties. First you had the Varman dynasty, then came the Salastamba, and finally the Pala dynasty, which fizzled out around 1138 AD. And with the collapse of the Palas, bam, you get the exact power vacuum we were just talking about.
So, with the old rulers gone, this power vacuum appears. And right into that void steps a brand new kingdom, one that would be forged and really defined by just relentless conflict.
So what exactly was the Kamata Kingdom? Well, it was a medieval power that popped up in Western Assam, and its whole identity was built on one simple thing: survival. For over 300 years, their main job was just defending their territory from one powerful invader after another.
And the pressure was on right from the very beginning. Take one of their early rulers, King Prithu. He had to deal with 3 major attacks in just over 20 years. Just imagine trying to lead a brand new kingdom under that kind of constant threat.
And listen, we're not talking about a few small border skirmishes here. This was a relentless onslaught. In 1205, you've got an invasion by Muhammad bin Bakhtiar Khalji. In 2026, another one by Nasruddin Mahmud Khalji. Just 2 years later, in 1228, Tajuddin Khalji shows up, and the attacks just kept coming for decades. This kingdom was truly born in a trial by fire.
These handwritten notes from our source material really map out that whole chronicle of invasions. But the key takeaway here is simple. All those attacks we just mentioned were basically directed at just 2 rulers, Prithu and Sandhya. These were the guys who had to take the brunt of it and somehow hold the new kingdom together.
But after weathering those early storms, the kingdom's biggest threats started coming not from the outside, but from within. This is where we get into the really tangled web of royal succession, alliances, and all that drama.
Now this flowchart from our source material might look a little complex, but you only need to track a few key people. The line of succession eventually leads down to a king named Pratapdvaj, and here's the crucial part. His 2 sons, Durlab Narayan and Dharmadvaj, are the ones who had set the stage for the kingdom's eventual fragmentation. But hey, it wasn't all about fighting. The Kamata rulers were also pretty sharp politicians. For instance, in 1324, King Pratapadvaj arranged for his son to marry the daughter of the king of Gada, that's modern-day Bengal. This was a classic strategic alliance, right? A smart move to keep their western border secure.
So here's the crucial point. As the main Kamata line started to weaken from all the internal drama, it created yet another power vacuum, and a new local dynasty, the Khen, rose up to fill that void. It was founded by Niladraj in 1440, and his family would go on to rule the region for the rest of the 15th century.
And this brings us to our final chapter. The fall of the Kamata and Khen dynasties didn't leave a void for long, and their collapse would completely reshape the political map of Assam for centuries to come.
And this chart illustrates the new reality perfectly. The power that Kamata once held was now split. You had the mighty Ahom Kingdom, a contemporary power that would eventually dominate the entire region. You had the Chute Kingdom to the east, the Khen Dynasty as a direct but pretty short-lived successor, and then finally the Koch Empire, which would rise up and absorb all of the old Kamata territory.
To put it simply, the Koch Empire, established in 1515 AD, is considered the direct successor to the legacy of the Kamata Kingdom. It inherited the land, the people, and the strategic importance, the whole shebang.
Now, all these successor kingdoms, the Ahoms, the Koch, the Chutyas, they would all continue to fight for dominance for another 300 years. But their entire era, this whole medieval period, comes to a sudden and definitive end on one single date, 1826.
So what happened in 1826? The arrival of the British. And that event marks the end of a nearly 1,500-year chapter of independent, local rule in Assam. It closes the book on the medieval period and kicks off a completely new, colonial era.
And that leaves us with one final thought. From the early Varmans to the defiant Kamatas and the powerful Ahoms and Koch, we've covered a vast timeline. So the question really is, how do the legacies of these ancient and medieval kingdoms, their conflicts, their alliances, their cultures, how do they all still echo in the region today?